We're at Erie, Pennsylvania at the Maritime Museum, and there is the Brig Niagara at dock. And we're going to take a look in the museum. They're open today, even though it says on the website they're closed. That looks like that's a cutter. Yeah. Beautiful little vessel. But look how far back that mast is. To make room for all the, are they spankers? Spritzels. Okay. Neat. Let's go into the museum. It's a good museum. We've been here before, but not for very long, and not with a camera. So this time we're gonna make a little video. Come on along. A couple of historical markers outside. One of them to Paul Almond Seipel. Wow. Selected from all the U.S. Boy Scouts to accompany Byrd on his 1928 Antarctic expedition. The Erie Man. And over here, William Leverett Morrison, U.S. Naval Reserve Force. Last commander of the USS Wolverine, formerly the Michigan, the first iron-hulled battleship. And I think it had its name changed probably because they were going to launch a battleship named the Michigan, so they had to change the old Michigan's name to the Wolverine, so before they decommissioned it. It's administered by the Pennsylvania Historical and Museum Commission. I was a recipient of a Scholars in Residence grant from them in 2003 for my PhD research. Good organization. Radically underfunded, unfortunately. But they do what they can. Okay, now we can go into the museum. And as we come into the museum, there's the gift shop on the right. Very nice little gift shop. We picked up a couple of beer cozies in there and a sticker for the cargo carrier. Some iron cannon here, look like carronades. And there's a reproduction of a painting of the Battle of Lake Erie, where the Niagara was a very key component in the American victory over the British during the War of 1812. We've made a video about that at Put-in Bay 3 years ago. So here we are on the other end of Lake Erie where the ships were built. Come on in, there's a model of the ship. And we'll come on into and the ship is in port, so we'll be able to see that today. Orientation theater, and there's the visitor's desk. Very nice gentleman gave us an orientation. Debbie, as usual, reading from top to bottom, word by word, everything that's written on all displays, even when they're...
Your wife does that too?
Yeah. Oh. She wears me out.
Oh, seriously.
My knees will never be the same. Let's go in. So after we saw the very informative orientation video, we're going to go into the first floor displays, the War of 1812. So here we see some storyboards and the preliminaries leading up to the declaration of war. There's on the North American scene from the British perspective and the Native American perspective, which was of course unified against the American perspective, who were moving into the Northwest Territories and displacing the Native Americans. War is finally declared over a number of issues. British were abusing Americans on land and at sea. Here's a great poster. Military might. What were the Americans thinking? The preponderance of military power on the side of the British Empire. Our Navy had a total of 16 ships, none of which were ships of the line, or battleships that could win a stand-up fight. We only had 7 frigates, smaller ships. So where could we win? Well, we could win on the Great Lakes, where everybody's ships were small. Here's the expansion of the fleets, the British and the Americans. Storyboards more come see for yourself at the museum. And I'm walking past, over my shoulder, off scene, the original painting that I'm not supposed to take a picture of, the copy of which I took a picture of for you on the way in. Here are the very small, you see the small sizes. There's the Niagara, a brig, two-masted vessel compared to these little schooners. And in the background is the orientation film on the battle, which is very good and worth seeing. Here's the aftermath. Perry's battle flag, "Don't give up the ship."
To engage an enemy vessel of its own class. Lawrence will oppose Detroit.
Basically the last words of a friend of his, an American Navy captain who was killed earlier in the war. Now we're going to walk up onto a replica of the gun deck of the Niagara. And you can see they've actually fired real cannons at this thing to show you the kind of damage that was done. Look at that. There's the mouth of a carronade. Very nicely done. Shows mannequins showing the crew working the gun. And we'll walk on up the ramp here. And as we come around, there's a replica of the sails. This is one of the long guns that the British had. It's actually captured from the British by Oliver Hazard Perry during the Battle of Lake Erie. There's the inside of damage from... They really fired a cannon at this thing to cause that damage, and then they put it into this display. Very nicely done. It shows you the kind of hazards that this crew had to weather, getting hit by one of those wooden splinters. And of course, if the fighting ever came to hand between two crews, of course, which it did often in this time of history, that could be even as brutal. Imagine getting hit with a slash from one of these puppies. Wow. I'm on my way. We're going out to see the ship.
But if you've never been to like a reenactment or had cannons fired around you, even that 2 pounds of powder, you can feel it in your chest, even as far back as we are. And to imagine 20 of them all firing at once with double the amount of gunpowder, and other cannons firing on other ships, you can't even imagine the noise and the concussion that was going around on these ships. Hearing loss was ridiculously common. Pretty much everybody had massive hearing loss. They would take like wax, they would stuff it in their ears, bits of cloth if they needed to, they would stuff it in their ears, they would wrap their heads with like pieces of wet canvas to try to help. But no matter, there's no escaping it. You're going to suffer a lot of hearing loss.
And another sticker is added to our traveling cargo carrier. Yay! That's it for this time. I hope you enjoyed this video and will take time to view some of our other ones.